Keep yourself in the loop of everything football. Listen to Alex and Jeremiah on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Hello there, I'm Jeremiah.
I am Alex, always and forever here.
Dedicated to college and NFL football. The latest football news on and off the field. NFL draft trade rumors. We've got you covered from the NFL, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC, and everything else in between. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, where we discuss the latest news, rumors, and games of the NFL and college football from the latest science dishes, breakout stars, and all the news in between. As always, I'm Jeremiah.
And I'm Anthony.
And Alex is not here today. For some reason, he thinks he needs to go to the dentist.
I mean, it's a nice thing to have every now and then. You don't want to wait too long on that. Then it kind of gets kind of bad.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. No, I'm kidding. But Alex should be back here tomorrow. But we have a lot to talk about today. I wouldn't say it's been kind of like a slow week, but we did have a lot of stories that emerged yesterday. Just yesterday, Anthony. We're going to be talking about Richard Sherman. He made some comments about Thursday Night Football because,
right.
Of course, the Seahawks will be at home facing against the Jeff Fisher-less Rams. Well, we talked about Jeff Fisher yesterday, so we're not going to get into that.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about the Oakland Raiders and the city of Oakland and what they're going to move forward with the team there. And as always on Wednesday, we're going to do our Why Left Wednesday, where we talk about the wackiest stories we found this week. But we're going to get started with the Oakland Raiders. It looks like the city of Oakland has approved an investment deal or agreement for a $1.3 billion stadium. It includes $350 million in public money. So it looks like the Las Vegas Raiders may not happen, which I kind of thought it wouldn't. I kind of knew that the Raiders were going to stay put in Oakland. What were your thoughts on this whole thing, Anthony?
So, by no stretch does this actually mean that the Raiders aren't going to move to Las Vegas or even Los Angeles. It's basically just something that puts a little tiny roadblock in the whole thing. We saw the same thing here in Sacramento where basically, we saw with the Raiders where it's basically yeah, they're going to move to Vegas or yeah, they're going to move to L.A., and the city of Oakland was just yeah, that's fine. We'll worry about that later. They're not going to put that much of a fight. But now that it's basically last kind of minute thing, now they have to do the thing. Like I said, in Sacramento, they did that with trying to move to Seattle, trying to move to Anaheim, trying to move to Las Vegas as well.
Yeah, you're talking about the Kings,
with
right?
the Kings, right. They had the whole thing of trying to move the NBA team, and at the last minute, it was no, look, we're actually going to move if you don't do something about this. And they're like, oh, okay, cool. Let's set up a thing where we can get an arena. Same thing with Oakland now. It's basically yeah, you guys are going to move, that's fine. Nope, now you guys have to figure it out. So now they have their investment group lined up where they're going to try and build a stadium in Oakland. They're going to try and do a new thing because I don't know if you've ever been to the Oakland Coliseum. It's not the best.
No, and I haven't, but I've heard really, really poor things about the structure there.
Here's the thing. It's a historical place that has had a lot of good Oakland A's games, a lot of good Oakland Raider games, a lot of good games in general. Also, terrible setup, really archaic. And at one point in baseball with the Oakland A's, was the sewage backup, which isn't the best thing to have if you want to make it seem like a nice, new, and exciting place to play. But they're going to try and build a new thing in Oakland, and whether that passes or not, like I said, at least gives them some kind of time. What I'm assuming will probably happen now is basically have the thing where they re-sign for another 1-year lease with Oakland to basically say, all right, fine, look, you guys got this set up, fine. Here's one more 1-year lease. To where if you can figure that out, cool. If not, we're leaving. So now you have the possibility of them staying in Oakland, which for the fans in Northern California is a nice thing because the Oakland Raiders have a lot of history, as compared to if they would now be the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, and there's like an investment group that the city kind of has approved the deal with the $1.3 million deal, and it's anchored by Ronnie Lott and Rodney Peete to negotiate a former agreement to build a stadium there. So pretty much all the risk is on Ronnie Lott and Rodney Peete right now on that investment group if everything doesn't really work out. But yeah, getting back to what you said, I think it's easy to compare this situation to the Kings because it's so recent. And plus, we are in Northern California, and it's both Northern California teams. It looked like the Sacramento Kings were going to move to Seattle to become the Sonics. But then again, the city of Sacramento and the former mayor now, Kevin Johnson, because it was his last day yesterday. He really pushed to have the Kings here, and then they really pushed to break ground a new arena, which they did. And the arena is absolutely gorgeous, by the way. It's really revolutionized the downtown Sacramento area. But for Oakland, they do have it's more of a lower economic issue there in the city. It's the area is a little more. They don't have as much money.
No, it's not as much with that. And the one fear that people in Oakland are fearing with this whole thing with the Raiders is you have the thing of you have the A's, you have the Raiders, and you have the Warriors, right? Because Golden State.
Well, the Warriors are going to move to San Francisco,
and that's the thing because Golden State Warriors play literally next door to the Raiders in Oakland, and you have them going to San Francisco. You have the possibility of the Raiders moving to Vegas, and you also have the possibility of the A's. At some point, their stuff's going to be up, and they might leave for San Jose or Sacramento or whoever else. So you have the possibility of having 3 teams in Oakland and call it 10 years, no teams in Oakland. So at least with this, it gives the possibility of them staying in Oakland. The one thing I always thought was kind of funny was like, with Vegas being a possibility, the funniest and oddly poetically best team to ever move to Vegas would probably be the Oakland Raiders, considering the history of the Raiders. Probably would have been a little bit funnier if Al Davis had still been alive, because if he'd have been alive, he'd have already moved. Like, he would have already been gone there now.
Yeah, they wouldn't even be.
No, they wouldn't
be. No, they wouldn't be.
No, he'd be like, I'm moving to Las Vegas. You can't do that. Sue me. I don't care. Because that's what he did with basically L.A. With the L.A. Raiders back in the 80s. He basically was just like, yeah, I'm moving to L.A. You can't do that. Okay, stop me. And he went and was there for a handful of years, won a Super Bowl there, and then ta-da, left again back to Oakland. But, I do want to see the Raiders stay in Oakland, kind of just for selfish reasons, kind of have a team that's kind of close with that, but also the history of the team is either in LA or in Oakland. In Las Vegas, you'll be able to be fine over there because it's basically going to be an attraction every single weekend. Basically, if you're anywhere from October to January and you're in Las Vegas for whatever reason for the weekend and you want to go see a game, let's go, kind of thing. So that'll be kind of fun to do, but I do kind of want to see them stay in Oakland.
Yeah, and the thing about Las Vegas as a tourist attraction, it would be a tourist attraction for a Raider game,
right.
And I think for that reason, I do think it would have been a good thing for the league.
Yeah,
it would have brought more fans in. If they were going to do that, I think they would have had a possibility. Let's just say hypothetically. The Raiders did move to Las Vegas, and then they were so successful that they're bringing so much revenue to Las Vegas, to the NFL. Let's just say it did work out. Then they would want to move another team there to Las Vegas. That way they can have a game every weekend in Vegas. That I can see happening for the NFL. And you know how the NFL is with their money. I do think that they see money in that idea, but that's not going to happen because I do think the Raiders are at home in Oakland. I do think they should stay there.
Well, the easiest thing, Oakland.
But I'm sorry. I kind of do want the Raiders to stay too for selfish reasons,
right?
Because I grew up a 49er fan.
Sure. And
it's just fun to have that little rivalry there. I don't think it would be the same if the Raiders moved to Vegas. If the Niners are still in San Francisco, because the Niners are never going to. I don't think they're ever going to leave.
Well, no,
that area.
Yeah, the new stadium that they have, that helps them stay. The one thing with the Raiders that does work to their advantage of moving to Oakland as compared to some like the Chargers or something like that, or for whatever reason the Seattle Seahawks decided to go to Las Vegas. Any team that's relatively close to Las Vegas, not moving a team like the Vikings or moving a team like the Saints or something like that. The thing with the Raiders is you have such a history with them in California, in Oakland, but also in Los Angeles. And Los Angeles to Las Vegas isn't that far away. People make that drive all the time. And you have the possibility of basically fans who are LA Raider fans basically just making a few-hour trip down to Las Vegas anyways. So you at least have a fan base that is relatively close and relatively familiar with that drive, right? If you have like a Minnesota Vikings team move from Minnesota to Las Vegas, that's a big, distance that you'd have to like figure out how to like accommodate those fans, or not accommodate them, but basically make fans in Las Vegas that were in Minnesota. But with the Raiders, it's just like, okay, you're over there, cool, let's just make a 3-hour trip. So that part's not going to be as bad. And also, it's the Raiders. It's one of the most historically relevant teams in the NFL. They've been basically terrible for the last, 14 years. And as soon as they start to get better, they become a very big story, right? So you get that in Las Vegas. You get the fact that it's Vegas, and Vegas is going to have – I don't think you're actually going to be able to bet on the Raiders in Vegas. I'll probably take that off the board just because you don't want the possibility of anybody betting on them in there, just players or not. But while I do want them to stay in Las Vegas and Oakland, I think it would be at least a fun thing and a fun story to see them in Vegas.
Yeah, and I do think it would be a fun story for the Raiders franchise too. Like you said, the fans in LA, even in Central California, like in the Fresno area, right. I think from my hometown, I think in Hanford, which is a little town south of Fresno. I think from my hometown Hanford to Vegas, I think it was a 6 to 8 hour drive. It was really boring, by the way, but by the time I got to Vegas, I'm like, oh, okay, finally. Right. But still, when, Vegas is one of those cities that's relatively close to California. And, with the Raiders, they're one of the few teams that has a fan base throughout the whole nation. We've seen it this year when the Raiders are on the road. We've seen them come out. They travel well.
We saw it in Mexico.
In Mexico, exactly. They're like one of those teams that has a very wide fan basis. It's like, I think the Raiders and the Cowboys are probably two of the most popular teams in the NFL. They have a really wide fan base. So I do think the fact that they're one of those teams that everyone really knows about, even though they've been so terrible, but the Raiders kind of have been they kind of like been a brand, so to speak. Right. So I do think that would have been a really potential good fit. But then again, I don't think Oakland really wants to see any of their professional teams go, and they really do need a stadium there. That Coliseum is just terrible. It's probably the worst sports venue in the world.
They do need a stadium, and that is fair. They don't need a stadium. They just,
Well, they don't need it, but for the Raiders, the Raiders do need another stadium, though.
It's a kind of political pull kind of a thing.
Yeah, it's a lot more deeper than it goes.
Right, because, you've seen, be it on John Oliver or whatever else like that, the fact of how much you actually spend on that stuff like that.
That was a great episode, by the way.
Private-public kind of thing, and how that doesn't exactly always work out the best way. It's worse when you do something for like the World Cup or the Olympics or something like that, where those aren't.
Oh, and then you got the PSLs too. People don't really talk about the PSLs.
But like, I do want them to stay in Oakland. Just, if it becomes like a very, public funded thing, that's not exactly going to work out the best how you hope. But we'll see how this goes. This is just like one step of the process. Like, there's still a bunch of stuff that has to go on just for them to even stay in Las Vegas. Like I said, this is just basically like a kind of putting one of those like orange cones in front of a road. Like, it doesn't stop them. It's just kind of like, okay, a little bit of a hindrance.
The one to slow down.
Right.
Yeah. So, this is a story that's probably going to go on throughout the whole year, and we'll always keep you guys updated on this story. But we're going to take our first break here. And when we come back, we're going to get into some comments that Richard Sherman has made about Thursday Night Football. So we're going to discuss that when we come back here at the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And welcome back to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. We're going to get into some news in Seattle. Richard Sherman made some comments on Tuesday about Thursday night football, about the NFL scheduling all these Thursday night games.
Right.
It's starting to maybe get a little too overwhelming, maybe for fans, definitely for the players. It's always been overwhelming for players. Richard Sherman has some comments to say,
right.
And they're kind of funny in a way. So if you want, Anthony, you can tell the good people here what Richard Sherman said on Tuesday.
Well, like you said, Richard Sherman's not happy about what's happening.
I'm not happy about it.
He said poop fest. It's terrible. We get home at like 1 o'clock in the morning, something like that on Monday, and then you've got to play again. Congratulations, NFL. You did it again. But they've been doing it all season, so I guess we're the last ones to get the middle finger. And then later on, talking about his issues, he says, about the NFL and what they've been doing. It's like, because it's just no regard. It's hypocritical. And I've stated before, they make this huge stance about player safety. Then you put the players in tremendous danger. We'll be well aware of the next CBA negotiations about things like this. There's really not much you can do right now. It's part of the revenue, et cetera, et cetera. And the league probably has something else up their sleeves. They might have a Friday night game planned. Who knows? So basically, Richard Sherman is basically just saying, right, this stinks. I don't like it, but, at least, we're not the ones who had to deal with it until now. We're the ones that get the proverbial middle finger right now, like everyone else has throughout the year. But when the new CBA comes up, that's something we're actually going to talk about because, like you said, it went from something to where a couple people were talking about it like, oh, Thursday Night Football, it's not good because you're only having 3 days. But as a collective, basically, people didn't care about it because, it's like, give me football, I want football kind of thing. You didn't care about how you got it. Now you have something to where the games were bad, the ratings were down, and the players are still saying, like, I remember 3 days, like basically going from having like 90 car crashes in a game to now you want us to do that again 3 days later. That doesn't seem right. And there's an easy enough fix with this. You basically just, extend the season for a week, right? I'm not saying add another game to the season. I'm not saying go to 18 games or something like that. What I'm saying is, because Ben and I talked about this on the sports show, basically you just take your 17 weeks, 16 games for 17 weeks, add a week, add another bye week. Basically you have 18 weeks that you play, still 16 games, but it's 2 bye weeks now. However you figure out the bye weeks now, however the Tennessee Titans have the bye week, however the Patriots have the bye week, whatever. However you figured that out, keep that. That's fine. And then also, the game where you play on Thursday Night Football, the week before that, you have a bye. So you have 10 days to rest. It's not like you have like 2 or 3 weeks to rest where you kind of get rest. 10 days, which is a little bit more than what you would usually have anyways. You give them 10 days to rest. You come in on Thursday night. That doesn't mean the product will be better. The product may still be crap. You don't know. But at least it's something to where you're not throwing the players out there on 3 days and basically say like, okay, have fun. Please don't get hurt kind of thing, right? And Richard Sherman, they say they're going to talk about it at the next CBA, but the problem is the NFL keeps stacking things on top of each other because you have this problem. You also have the Goodell problem of basically him being able to do whatever in the world he wants because he has autonomy. He can do whatever he wants no matter what. And if you get suspended, the appeal goes back to him, even though I think they switched that up a little bit. It's not the same, but it's still the possibility of that being out there. And it would be nice if they kind of address that a little bit in the next CBA to basically just not have it so soon, right? Like if you have another week and you give them another bye week, that gives the NFL more money, right? Because you have more ads, you have more revenue basically for that one extra week, which all it is basically you have another team that basically doesn't have to play a week, but the season will be longer. and it helps out the NFL. So they'll probably bring this up, but if it happens or not, who knows? But at least, it's something that's kind of getting more traction now with Richard Sherman talking about it and other players, recently talking about it as well.
Yeah, and to what you said, about adding the extra bye week, that's something that I really do agree with. If Thursday Night Football were to not go away next year, or after the CBA comes up, this is something that's going to be highly talked about. Probably one of the most notable topics in the CBA negotiations. Whenever it comes up, I don't know when the CBA expires for the NFL, but I am a fan of adding another bye week. It gives a chance for players to be more refreshed, because it's hard to play a game on Sunday after you practice literally for like 4 to 5 days. It's hard to do that alone. Yet again, you got to turn around and play 2 to 3 more days. Like Richard Sherman said, they didn't get home till like 1 o'clock because they did travel to Wisconsin to play against the Packers at Lambeau. They didn't get back to Seattle around 1 o'clock. And the fact that they're on the road and now they're playing on Thursday really takes a lot of your body, especially with the time change that you're traveling to. It's a lot. And the game last Thursday with the Oakland Raiders and the Kansas City Chiefs,
Right.
the Raiders traveled another time zone. I know they had a home game before that, but the fact that they're traveling another time zone to Missouri, I'm not going to make an excuse for them. That's why they lost that game, but it did. I think it really did affect them in a way because they probably didn't get there till they probably didn't leave Wednesday night. Probably didn't get there till Thursday morning. What's to say Thursday morning they're not adjusted to the time and all that. So that does play a part. The fact that, players have so many injuries coming off of a game on Sunday or Monday. They're coming off so many hits and injuries.
Right.
You got to turn around and play another game on Thursday. You're basically playing hurt. But then again, this is the NFL. You're always going to play hurt. But your body is taking so much collision, so much hits, in so little amount of time. That Friday, after the Thursday game, I don't even think you want to get out of bed.
No, I mean, probably not. It's one of those things, because Sherman even said he's only going to be about 50-60% by the time the Seattle Seahawks play, right? Because, the easiest analogy of this is just okay, fine, these dudes are superhuman, right? Their job is basically to collide,
that's what
once a week.
Well, that's what we look to them as. We think these guys are superhuman, but they're really not. They're just humans like us. They just happen to get paid more than the average human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now you have something where, Richard Sherman, who doesn't care at all about being silent as far as going along with the status quo of the NFL, he'll say whatever he wants. This isn't the first time this month, I think, probably, that he's basically spoken out about something like that. And, he is somebody who has the, how do you want to phrase it? Stones to stand up to the NFL and basically do something out of principle. Now it's just going to see if other people in the league do the same thing as well, because that's kind of how it worked with the NFL. Was basically they said all they have to do is align 32 owners, right? That's all they have to do is basically get 32 owners basically in agreement to okay, we're going to do this. Cool. To where the NFL has to get a whole bunch of people in line with a certain thing. And there's been whispers also about DeMaurice Smith not exactly being the most helpful as far as keeping those things happening, right, to go along with the NFL with what they want to do. Sherman's absolutely somebody who, someone who will absolutely decide he wants to have this cause and he will fight for this cause, but that doesn't mean other people will. And if they don't, then all of a sudden they kind of cave on some stuff, and all of a sudden it's not the same kind of fight. And now what was a nice idea by him and something they want to fight for, it just kind of goes by the wayside. And the NFL wins again. So you got to have more people actually unified on this front than Richard Sherman, but he's at least a nice start to get it started.
Yeah, and Richard Sherman is not the only one to complain about these Thursday night games. It's definitely not the first year they complain about it, especially when they expanded the Thursday night schedule. Because I remember when they originally implemented the
Right.
Thursday night games. I think it started like the second half of the season, and it started out. It looked really good on paper, and it got a lot of fans excited about more football. Then they expanded it outside of the first week because the first week of the season is always on a Thursday. Not always on Thursday. The opening game is on a Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
So that I do like that you get to start the season on a Thursday night because both teams have equally amount of rest. But now, it's getting a little too overwhelming. I feel like they're scheduling too many.
Well, it's fun
they're scheduling too many games. They're
Right.
scheduling too many teams that are not even good.
Well, yeah, but that comes with the sense of you're doing the rivalry stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like, for every Raiders-Chiefs game that might be good, might be bad, you're also going to have a Jaguars-Titans game, which is like, whew, that's bad kind of thing, right? If you're doing rivalry things, that's how that works in the division. But, yeah, it works out well enough. Like, I tried to figure this out with a buddy of mine like a year ago or something like that, where it's basically just like, okay, the NFL doesn't do Thursday night, Saturday night, Monday night games the last week of the season, right? Week 17, it's just Sunday, right? To basically have everything kind of wrapped up for whatever the last playoff spot is. You're not going to have anything weird on Thursday, just everything Sunday. So understanding that if you add another week of the season, that's 18 weeks, but only 17 of those weeks you're going to have Thursday night games. So you take those 17 games, add a couple more because of Thanksgiving, so that's 19 NFL games, right? That's 19 Thursday night games you have to worry about throughout the year. 16 of those will be for rivalries. A couple more of them will be for the for the Cowboys and for the Lions. And then you can add another random game. The first game of the season is not a rivalry game. It's just kind of one of those like, hey, we have the Super Bowl champions against, a random team. Like last year it was the Broncos and the Panthers?
Panthers, yeah.
Yeah, you had a rematch, right? So that has nothing to do with the rivalry. That has nothing to do with the Cowboys. That has nothing to do with the Lions. That's just, hey, this is a fun game to do. You can do this stuff really easily. Yeah, there's some snags as far as like week 2 because you want to have them have the bye week before. You're not going to necessarily, give them a bye week on week 1 and basically have them not start the season. So I guess week 2 you still have some conflict or whatever else like that. But fine, pay them like $25,000 more. I don't know. Would it give them some boost or whatever else like that? But there's an easy enough way to fix this.
Yeah, if I'm a player and I have to play on Thursday, I'll be like, man, give me more money. That's the thing I would say. But, yeah, that's going to conclude our discussion on this topic. Man, good discussion, Anthony. Good
Thank
discussion. You. All right. You good, man. You good. All right. We're going to take our last break here, and we're going to get into our wacky segment of, like we always do on Wednesday. That's the Why Left Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be discussing some wacky stories that occurred throughout this week. We will have that for you guys when we come back at the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. And it's time, Anthony. It's time for Why Left Wednesday. Like we do every Wednesday. Yes. Get excited, Anthony. Come
All
on.
right, I got it. Let's go.
Get excited.
All right,
Okay.
let's go.
All right. Of course, like you guys, if you guys have listened to the show before, this is the wackiest stuff that we find throughout the week. And if this is your first time, then this is a lot better with Alex on. But me and Anthony are going to pull through, try to make this the best Why Left Wednesday you guys have ever heard if you're listening for the first time. So go, Anthony, go.
All right. So it's something that we've heard about a little bit throughout the week, right? We've seen with the Los Angeles Rams, they fired Jeff Fisher, oddly enough, after he just got a contract extension, which is kind of weird. But he's fired now. He's gone. So now they're looking for other head coaches to fill the vacancy. The names you've heard are anywhere from Jim Harbaugh to Pete Carroll to John Gruden to even Nick Saban's name gets thrown out there. And that's all fine, right? for Los Angeles, you want to get a big name coach. Also, I found it funny because basically now you have Jim Harbaugh coming out. No, these are lies made up by my enemies, which is just great, and it's totally something that Jim Harbaugh
I did
would
see
say.
it. That was funny. He's all like, we call this guy Jive Turkeys.
Dude, he's an insane person, Jim Harbaugh, and I love him. He is great. And you get the same thing with Pete Carroll in Seattle, which I never ever understood why that would be the case. Like, Seattle's a good team.
Yeah, I didn't understand it either, because I think the reason why they thought Pete Carroll was going to LA is because he coached at USC, but
Cool, that's nothing to do
he
with
has
the Rams.
But like, he has a good team. Like, he has a good team.
And
Like,
then-
they're in the playoffs.
And my favorite of all of them is John Gruden, right? John Gruden is my favorite of all these scenarios, right? And I'm not saying he's my favorite to get the head coaching job. No, that's not what I'm saying. I don't care who gets the job. That's fine. That's irrelevant. The point is, Jim Harbaugh said, never mind. Pete Carroll said, never mind. Gruden is out there like, I may take a chance and go look at that. Which is all him basically doing is just like, ESPN, I want more money. Give me more money. Because he's the highest paid dude at ESPN, and all he's doing, because he's not going to go coach the Rams, because why would you coach the Rams? Why would you leave ESPN and coach the Rams? That's a headache. No. Basically, I think all that Gruden's doing with that is basically like, how much do I get paid? Like, I don't know how much he gets paid. Let's say he gets paid like $3 million. He's like, how much do I get paid? $3 million? I want 3.5. And they're going to give him 3.5, because what do they care? It's ESPN. They print money. And I just kind of find it funny because there was even something about Nick Saban. Oh, maybe Nick Saban should coach the Rams. Why? Why should he coach why? He already tried the NFL thing with the Dolphins. That didn't work. He didn't have a quarterback there. He's not going to have a quarterback in Jared Goff, or at least not a good one. It's going to take a few years for him to actually be a good quarterback. Nick Saban's not young. He's like 66 years old. He doesn't have much time to deal with a young quarterback. And he has the best team in college football right now. He's got a chance to win back-to-back national championships. Why would you leave to go to the Rams? It's all just names you've heard before and all these big names. And I love the fact that John Gruden's basically like, yeah, I haven't gotten a contract extension in a while, or at least a pay raise in a while. Let me get that pay raise.
Yeah, the one that made me laugh so much was the Nick Saban.
Sure.
I'm like, why would he go back to an NFL? He doesn't have total control like he does in college. And,
yeah.
And I think that's kind of like the reason why Jim Harbaugh doesn't really want to go back to the NFL right now. Because, things didn't work out with the 49ers and the front office there.
Sure.
He didn't have as much control as he wanted. And they were just colliding. They were just colliding personalities there. But that's a whole nother story.
Well, the thing with Harbaugh is he basically, needs to at least do some sort of like high-level winning. Because he's done really well at Michigan, don't get me wrong. But I don't think he's beaten Ohio State yet, and he kind of
he hasn't.
He needs to do that, and if he can get to the playoffs, whether or not he wins the national championship, if he can get to the Final Four, you want to call it, in the playoffs, then he wants to go to the NFL. I think that's more of the style of what he would do.
Yeah, he doesn't. Yeah, he's not going to leave his alma mater,
right?
His former college team like that. He's not going to leave him in the dust. Like, I think he really wants to get that team into the playoffs. Like, he really wants to be Ohio State at least once before he goes back to the NFL, because I do think Harbaugh's going to go back. It's just a matter of time and when.
He's football Larry Brown. He just moves around all the time. Yeah. He can't last one spot too long because he wears out his welcome, but he's intense. He's fiery, and in the beginning people are like, yeah, and then eventually after 4 years it's like, okay, please stop.
And I think that's kind of like the problem that he ran into in San Francisco with, he was dealing with a lot of grown men, and I guess they weren't hearing that mentality. But getting back to these coaches here, I don't know, this whole fiasco here just really makes me laugh. Because we thought Jeff Fisher was the big name hire when they originally made it, and he hasn't been anything better but 8-8 there.
Right.
John Gruden, I can honestly see that being more realistic than Jim Harbaugh and Nick Saban. I can see that being more realistic, but I don't think it's going to happen. But I wouldn't be surprised because John Gruden is on Monday Night Football, and Monday Night Football is probably one of the most boring broadcasts that they have there. It's just not the same as it has been. It just hasn't. But, it's tough to see who's going to want to – well, it's not tough to see. But I do think the Rams are going to get a really good hire. I do think they're going to get a big name because, for one, they're in L.A. I actually do think they have a lot of good talent there. I do think they really do have a lot. I do think they have a talented defense. They have a really great young running back. I do think they have a good young quarterback who has a lot of potential. I think one thing I really do like, I can maybe possibly see Sean Payton go. Kind of reboot his career a little bit in L.A. because, for one, he has a young quarterback there. Maybe he can possibly bring Drew Brees. I know that's kind of like a stretch there, but if you have Drew Brees in front of Jared Goff can learn a lot. And, Sean Payton is kind of more of a star than most of those guys that we named here today. So I do think.
But see, that's the same thing. You're just going after stars. And the thing with Gruden, like you talked about Gruden, you can see Gruden last coached in 2008.
Yeah. I know that. And
you know what TV shows started in 2008?
Well, what show?
Breaking Bad and Sons of Anarchy.
Yes.
Neither of which are on the air anymore, by the way. And that's the last time he coached in the NFL.
No, and I know that. That's why I do think he. That's why I know it's been a while.
Just because he goes back doesn't mean he's going to be a good coach.
No,
he could just go over there and just be terrible.
I never said that he was going to be a good coach. I just said that I wouldn't be surprised if he happened to go back into coaching again. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. It's hard to become a coach when you have such a long layoff like that. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, that's a really good point that you just mentioned. But, yeah, getting back to what I was saying, I actually do think – I'm surprised that they haven't talked about Sean Payton going there into the LA Rams. And I know it's kind of a tough stretch that he's with the Saints right now. But, the Saints haven't been good either in the past couple of years. They missed the playoffs for the past couple of years.
Yeah, but you're going to be the one that kicked Sean Payton out, the guy that won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I know that's hard. But if I'm Sean Payton, where do you want to go? Do you want to go to New Orleans? And I know he has a lot of success there. Or do you want to kind of reboot your career with the LA Rams? Do you want to go to LA, the bright lights? Which one would you want to go to? I do think the Rams is an attractive spot. I do think they have a really good defense there. They have a really good potential on offense. They just need to build around Jared Goff. I actually do think Jared Goff could be a really good quarterback. It's just a matter of time and building around him. I do think it's an attractive place to go.
Yeah, I mean it's just because it's Los Angeles, right? That's the only reason why people care
not only
about
that.
it
No, not only that's in L.A., but I do think they actually have talent there in L.A. Like they have They have talented players on defense. They have Todd Gurley there, a really good running back. I do have a young quarterback who's still learning the game. I actually do think he has a lot of potential to be good. Potential is saying a lot, though. They just need to bring a guy that can help Jared Goff if they want to keep Jared Goff. Because they traded a lot of picks for him.
Right.
So they're really quite invested in Jared Goff.
Yeah.
They just need I do think they need an offensive-minded guy for the Rams.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, so I don't know. I just think it's going to be tough to – it's going to be tough to see who is the best fit for the Rams, but I do think they're going to – I do think the Rams are going to get their guy. I do think they're going to get their guy because, they got one of the richest owners there. They do have L.A., like I previously said, and they do have a talented roster. But, yeah. Anyways, moving on to my why left. We're going to be talking about a punter, Anthony. And I do think probably the most famous punter of not since Ray Guy, but maybe of this season, that was Marquette King of the Oakland Raiders. He kind of has a lot of on-field antics sometimes. He often celebrates. He was kind of having an off game against the Chiefs last Thursday. But, Jack Del Rio, he did have some comments about his punter. He said, he can't have another penalty, cannot have another penalty. I've allowed him to have his freedom. I want him to express himself. I think that's when he's at his best. But we can't have routine 15-yard penalties out of our punter. We got 2 in a row, 2 weeks in a row, and that's got to stop. So Marquette King has had 2 penalties called on him for 2 weeks in a row. I don't know. I think what's your comments on this, Anthony? Because I do think Marquette King kind of does make the punter position kind of fun. But I do kind of have to agree with Jack Del Rio here. He can make these penalties as a punter. It kind of looks bad on your special teams because special teams is just as important as your offense and defense. And that affects, the other team's on-field position.
Right. Like, okay, here's the thing. I get it. I get Del Rio doesn't want to get, penalties from his punter because a punter is basically just like a half a step above the kicker, and no one likes the kicker. Everyone hates the kicker on the team, and they barely like the punter. But at least Marquette guy's kind of cool, and he has some fun with it and does all this other stuff like that. And I get that you don't want to have penalties. I've been enjoying Marquette King, and now that kind of stinks. I don't get to enjoy him anymore. But I get it. You don't want penalties because the whole point of having a punter is to pin you within like the 10-yard line at best. And if you get a 15-yard penalty, then you're at the 25. And all of a sudden, that's not a good kick at all. Now you're just kind of at normal field position, and it doesn't matter the punt that you just had. I get it. And it's a lot easier for him to kind of rain down on him because let's say if it was somebody like Amari Cooper who was doing it, then all of a sudden, it's harder to police, right? Because all of a sudden he's someone who can be more valuable to the team so you don't yell at him. It's the thing of Jimmy Johnson used to do the thing one time if Michael Irvin was asleep in a team meeting, you wake him up. If the third-string cornerback was asleep in a team meeting, you cut him kind of thing, right? That, people are valuable or whatever. And Marquette King is a really valuable player as far as punting goes, but he's not valuable enough to where he can be really good and also do these things, right? Like he's not allowed to basically get the penalties. No one's really allowed to get the penalties, I should say. But he's not allowed to get away with having penalties a la someone like a Khalil Mack or Amari Cooper or Derek Carr. If they got a couple penalties, Del Rio would just have to eat it. With Marquette King, he can be like, you're a punter. Stop.
Yeah. Marquette King's probably one of the funnest punters I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
Ever. He makes special teams fun.
That's a very
I just got some advice there from Marquette King before we go here.
Sure.
Marquette King, you got to stay away from the Kardashians, man. There's been rumors going around that he's been seeing Kim Kardashian. Just stay away from the Kardashian King because, really, you're going to curse your team. You see how it worked out with Kanye. You see how it worked out with Tavon Austin. Where's Tavon Austin now?
Dude,
exactly.
to be fair to
Where's Miles Austin? Where's Miles Austin?
To be fair to Kanye West is already kind of a madman before that all started.
He was, and he's even more of a madman now. But come on, Miles Austin, where is he at now? And was it Chris Humphries? Where's Chris Humphries at?
I understand.
Marquette King, just stay away. And don't forget about Lamar Odom. What happened? Lamar Odom was a whole different.
Well, you can't throw that on the Kardashians. You can't throw.
No, but I do think there's some effect on that.
I'll go with you that the Kardashians are kind of an insane thing and everything else that goes along with this kind of a whirlwind of just everything chaos. But you can't throw Lamar Odom on them. That's a lot of issues that kind of mounted up.
Yeah, it is a little bit of maybe a little bit of both, but it's probably more on Odom. But I just wanted to list the athletes that were associated with the Kardashians and Marquette King. Stay away. Your team is doing really good. They have a chance to make the playoffs. Don't curse him. Just ask Miles Austin what happened to his NFL career.
And this is you coming from a Niner fan.
Exactly. All right. And it's coming from a Kanye fan too, but whatever. Anyways, really thank you guys for tuning into the show, and thanks for putting up with the little bit of a Kardashian rant there. Right. But I had a really awesome show today. Alex wasn't able to be here today, but he will be back tomorrow.
Yep.
But for Alex, I am Jeremiah.
And I'm Anthony.
And we'd like to thank you guys for tuning in to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. And we will be back tomorrow talking about the Thursday night game and other news throughout the world of football.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.